we're doing a special Ben and Zach's Great Society episode.
I feel like we could have come up with a snappier name ahead of time.
Well, but all right, what's your best idea?
I don't have one. I'm just saying we could have worked.
You think that's so? You just want to diss my title on the air?
Eudaimonia Utopia.
There we go. All right. Eudaimonia Utopia. All right. I like it. So the plan is we are going to present 3 ideas to fix our ailing country. We're assuming that we have completely unchecked federal power, aligned interests among, the legislature, judicial branch, and the White House, kind of like we do right now. And we can do anything we need to do to change the country, politically, socially, culturally, to fix a lot of big problems we got. What is your first idea, Zach?
Cars kind of suck.
Mm-hmm.
Just an entire infrastructure built around cars sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And I know coming from a broke man who does not have a car, it's going to make it sound like I'm, mad at the world or whatever. But I think, like, somebody who's traveled, you've been to other places, and I'm sure there's places in, like Rome that are walkable, and you get the trains or buses or whatever, and you feel the interconnectedness of a culture or a city or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of that's lost here because you have to drive so far to get anywhere, and everything's a parking lot, and what isn't a parking lot is a strip mall.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this isn't, a political fix to, or a societal fix necessarily, but infrastructure is a big part of how we live our lives and why we do.
That's a political fix, man, because, it was policy and lobbying that kind of got us to the place we're in. The auto industry kind of working to get us dependent on cars, keep investment in public transit, at a minimum, and to, like we've got minimum regulations on parking spaces for a building. Basically, parking spaces have to be like 5 times the size of a building. They have to be able to accommodate every possible person that could be in that building at any time, right? And so basically our cities are like 85% parking spaces, square footage wise.
Yeah.
And so much land that could be used for other things. It makes it hard to live in human communities. We have no connection with our neighbors. I'm going to be with you on this one, Zach. I can't disagree with you. I'm absolutely against car culture. And so, but the question is, how do we make this happen? Why are we like this? Because it's a huge country, and there's no country of this size that has high-speed rail that is ubiquitous enough that, China and Russia have good high-speed rail systems, but like China is a very dense population, and so they still use many cars, but they have high-speed rail systems that transmit between their huge urban metro centers, whereas America is so like sparsely populated, especially in the middle. We would have to use like regional rail systems, right? And the middle of the country would still have to rely on cars pretty much, right?
Well, for me, I should have prefaced it by saying it wouldn't be car free, just heavily,
Yeah,
reduced.
You can't be completely car free. In Europe,
people
people obviously drive
horse
cars.
and carts.
That'd be nice. Well, it'd be a little smelly, but
I lived in a town where that was, a thing. It is smelly, but
sorry, what? You lived in a town where they used horse and buggies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little hole in the wall in Indiana. There was a large Amish population, so a lot of the town was brick road. So you just hear the clomping at all hours of the morning and
incredible
poop everywhere. There's a charm to it too. It was one of the only things I really liked about living there was you wake up and you hear the clomping and life is already happening. There's already stuff going on, and I could walk everywhere that I needed to walk because everything was here.
Very condensed. So were there cars also that just you had the occasional horse and buggy on the side of the road kind of?
There were more horse and buggy than you would think. Again, it was a very sizable Amish population, but yeah, there's still cars. There was a central, highway that ran through the town, but it was kind of the middle of nowhere. So it was, I think there's only 1,000 or 2,000 people that lived in the town.
No, that's very small.
One of the side effects is you have to be outside of a vehicle, out of a building. You're out in the world. You're seeing things happen, not at 60 miles an hour, but you're experiencing life. So people interact with each other more often. And one of my biggest things with cars is that everyone around you is in a multiple ton death machine, and it depersonalizes travel. So everybody is basically a threat at all times because they have to be. They say defensive driving. The fact that it's even called defensive driving in the first place to me kind of seems like an issue. Like that is the safe way to drive, but you have to drive under the assumption that nobody knows what they're doing, everyone is stupid, and everyone is out to get you because they kind of are. Especially depending on where you live, they might really be out to get you. And road rage being so prominent, such a thing that we all talk about flippantly, like, oh, that guy's got road, like it. How often do you hear about walker rage, bike rage? It does happen, but if a guy cuts you off on a bicycle and you've been biking for 2 hours, you're likely not going to be in the position to you're not going to want to get off your bike,
chase him down
and chase him down. You're either tired, the other guy's tired, or there's that runner's high thing, the elevation of, getting the good chemicals in your brain from exercising and moving. And
so if you run, you're less likely to be violent, you think?
Yeah, I think so. If you're getting the elation from movement, you're not just sitting there in a rut. Because you do anything, like you sit and watch Lord of the Rings for 16 hours, like, yeah, your brain's probably having a good time. Like, I great. But some part of you doesn't want that. It's not, like you would say, like, it's not really natural. It's not the way that we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be up and moving and doing things. And so if I spend roughly 2 hours a day in a work day, to and from work, because I live in Newport Richey and I work in Largo. Yeah. And I'm not the one driving, I'm carpooling, but like sitting there and just watching traffic pass by, I'm losing motivation. I'm losing wakefulness. Like I fall in and out of sleep. Even if I try to like do research or whatever on my phone, trying to play a game or literally anything to try to entertain my brain, it just doesn't work because it's stagnant.
Trying to make it happen in America is tough for a variety of reasons. I think a lot of people want better public transit. A lot of people want less reliance on the car, but auto industry is a big thing. Cars they have been the way it's been for 80 years. The country was designed, the growth of the country was designed around highways and the automobile. And so it would involve like a complete change in building code, in our public policy or infrastructure has to change dramatically. And it's any time you try and promote like a new rail system, there's this tremendous, it does get shot down because they always they see a high upfront cost, which there is, but they don't see the long-term benefits, and
it doesn't really put money in certain pockets that I think that would be, if we're doing the sort of ideal society, unlimited power thing, I think the first step would just be to push some of that shit through, to get a railway system started and get the framework of that going so you could start scaling back on other things and use some of that space more effectively once the rails are built. And then you just start slowly, let nature take back over or what have you. Yeah.
Because you need to add the benefits, add the enhanced transportation before we can start taking away things, which is the massive parking lots, the car-centric infrastructure. You have to provide an alternative for people before they're going to buy into that and then eventually maybe give up their car in exchange for public transit or even like potentially just literally bicycles or walking if that can become possible. I mean, there's like in Tampa, there's a couple smaller walkable city kind of prototypes. Midtown is the biggest one we got. And obviously the barrier to entry is extremely high rents. I mean, it's not for the average person. I mean, I think, you're looking at least $3,000 a month for a pretty small place, right? Completely unattainable for most people. Yeah. But it's a great prototypical walking community. They have a grocery store. Really all you need, especially if you're working from home, is just your residency and then groceries and other sundries and stuff, right? And so they've got that in a small walkable area. They can just come down from their apartments, walk to the store and back. But again, there isn't a widespread interest in moving that direction.
Right. Also, how do you go to IKEA without a car? You know what I mean?
It is difficult to imagine living in the United States without a car. I mean, as obviously you've experienced,
I imagine it all the time, every day. As somebody who used to take the bus with, as an everyday form of commuting before I moved to Newport Richey, it raised my spirits. It like improved my day. Getting on a bus, having the bus driver, know the names of everybody who's on the route and regularly gets on the bus, and an old woman getting on the bus and some guy sprints from the back of the bus to help, take her walker and help her up the stairs. Like, there's freaking humanity is there. Like, I felt like I was seeing an aspect of a place I've lived most of my life for the first time. And the times that I've been, I don't remember where I was, but there's, I think, a bus line that goes to Miami. There's one, I think it takes, it goes laterally across the state. And they have these bus designs that have these big open spots where you could just walk a bike onto, because it's meant to go across the majority of the state. Okay. So you could, go real long distances with that and just bring your bike on with you and stand with your bike or whatever.
Oh, really?
And so I made the joke about what would you do with like a fridge or whatever, but you would conceptually, you could have a separate rail line that had these, cars or booths designed for like, dolly usage or something, and you would have it, you'd be rolling it with you. I know that sounds a little impractical, but I could see a thing where you live here and then you have to come down and then take the train a couple blocks down and you get your thing and then you dolly it onto the thing and you walk it to your...
I mean, it's potential. I mean, like, I remember you go into a big city and you see, it's pretty shocking what people were able to put onto bicycles. Like delivery guys, they'll stack, like these 10-foot high stacks of Uber Eats things on the back of their bike. There are ways to be mobile and to... and to carry items, without cars. And people lived that way a long time before cars came around, and we could totally do that again, and we could have a much more kind of fruitful life. I mean, I think the cars are like a middle period technology. I mean, they gave us mobility and freedom, but there has to be a more efficient way of getting people around, because the costs are tremendous, not just environmental costs, but just the cost to life and limb every single day, the amount of people that die in car crashes. But yeah, and it doesn't change people's behaviors because, it's obligatory. You're 16 years old, you get a car if you can, at least, because you need to be mobile in order to participate in the economy. But as we get pushed further and further out, like, here we're in the outskirts of Tampa, Florida. I mean, I've had to move continuously further and further out, and so have you. You had to move up, away from the primary area of business, just to find, affordable living, right? And so that puts you at this dependency on transportation that shouldn't be necessary, but that's the economy we're living in. We have a lot of constraints on the ways of life that we choose to live just because the way we're forced to live.
Yep. I frequently hear, since moving to where I moved, that it's like a commuter town. Like there are whole towns where, and I feel like this might even be a separate thing that it's just now occurring to me, that the money that should stay within a town or be made and then spent within a town is now being outsourced to the places that are already high income, and like St. Pete and Clearwater and stuff like that. So it on a municipal level, it's probably having an effect that everybody that lives in one area all has to drive to another area to find normal work, or what affordable work or whatever. Yeah. Maybe Newport Richie isn't the best example because it's also where people go to retire, and there's lots of McMansions and boats and
we
things.
just live in a state where people go to retire, so that's
but if you extrapolate that out to other places in the country, you have these commuter towns where people have to leave because there's nowhere to work. Yeah, and the only way to do anything is to get in a car and drive and hate every second of it. And I see an aspect of it that's like a self-expression. You buy a car, like, this is my car, and I put bumper stickers on it, and you're not allowed to put frames on your license plate anymore for some reason. But
really?
License plate.
What cute license plate frame do you have, Zach?
I don't have a car.
Well, fair enough. Yeah. But feels like you don't have a lot of skin in this game, Zach.
I've owned several cars. They just sometimes they don't last long or whatever. And
well, conversely, I'm saying I think that you practice what you preach. You're already moving away from the car centric lifestyle.
It started with I need to get a car. It just it consumed everything I was doing. It was saving money to try to get a car. Like I was prioritizing getting a car over everything. And I guess it's easy to say because I'm in the no car having, category, but like I took the bus and I actually really liked it. Yeah. And I don't love carpooling because it's the same thing as driving. I'm just now, my brain isn't engaged and I'm falling asleep. But riding, I used to ride my bike to work. I used to walk to work. I've done pretty much everything but taking a train. I've never been on a train. See all of those and their various weaknesses for what they are, but I still think every single one of them is a more valuable. Like if you combine all of them and make a travel gumbo out of them, I think they make an attractive alternative for most people. Obviously, there's things like out in the country and what have you.
Yeah, but the majority of people, they live in large metropolitan areas. They're concentrated in the cities because that's where the economic activity is. And so these areas could benefit tremendously from better public transit. And, another issue is just people have a very adverse kind of feeling towards taxation, towards public services in the United States. And that's one of my points I'm going to talk about later is that people have kind of a lack of collective spirits and sense of civic duty that I feel like leads to, people will pay more to avoid doing taxes than they would have paid in taxes in the first place.
Yes.
It's just always a fuck you thing because of this rugged individualistic idea with the United States, but which I think, had was integral to the founding of the country, but I think is now kind of holding us back in a lot of ways and has led us to a place where people are very self-righteous and self-centered, and they don't understand how important the thriving community they live in is, and contributing to that community. And so any federal funding that goes towards something they don't directly benefit from, they're like, I'm not going to vote for that, and they push against absolutely everything that isn't a direct subsidy to their own lives because they don't see the value of sacrificing for their community because their community doesn't. Yeah, fucking NIMBYs, man, And it's such a poisonous idea, and I'm not gonna start talking about ancient Rome here. But listen, all right, listen.
All right, reset the clock.
Sorry, I get hit by ancient Rome button. Listen, it's brief, right? All I'm gonna say is, all right, in ancient Rome they had a sense of civic virtue, and there are rights in citizenship, but there's also responsibilities, and we're obsessed with our rights as citizens, but we are completely devoid of responsibilities as citizens, and that is a big part of why our government programs suck, because they're undervalued, underfunded, corrupt, because everyone's just looking out for themselves, and it's almost like a taboo topic, just government programs. Welfare, anything that's a collective benefit is seen as just contrary to our individual interests. But you cannot exist. You are not an island. This isn't anarcho-capitalism. You exist in a social contract, and you have to participate in the society. And if we don't all pitch in together, we're nothing. We're not a community. And so, that I kind of push this into one of my points, I guess. But yeah, I think that what we're missing is a sense of civic virtue.
So you're saying we need to be more collectivists in general?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really have I totally agree with that. Honestly, that's been a thing that's rang around in my head for years now. You look at places that are basically the exact, like I would have to use Japan, that is an example, I guess, where some of these things, every place has its flaws, but you see examples of people just taking care of each other, or things being taken care of automatically because it's something that must be done, or, when you live in a household with another person, it's not about, well, I'm the one that does this because that's what we decided. Just like, this is a thing that needs to be done. No. Somebody's going to take care of it. I'm going to take care of it because I'm here. It's crazy to me that people who, especially the more money somebody has, the worse this gets, obviously. But to sit you live in a place like where you have an HOA and you're all supposed to be, following this rule set to no one's benefit, apparently. We're wasting water on grass. We're, driving our stupid cars into our subdivisions, and we're simultaneously clustering into these little balls, but also so distant from each other at the same time. And it doesn't feel like anybody's learning anything.
Yeah, I don't know that neighbor's name. I don't know that neighbor's name. I don't know any of them. We're all here in our own little bubbles, operating in our own interests. And so then we're just inherently disconnected by this sense, and we have no And so anything that involves the collective is basically demonized because it's not a priority in our society, and
I was gonna bring up the when you look at what do they call it? Ethnic enclaves. When you go into somewhere like New York City
yeah.
and you see like a Chinatown and you see the people of a community, condensing into one spot. I mean, it's probably based on systemic racism and redlining and other things like that. But when they gather in these places, they're showing us how it should be done. This is how I look at it. Like they take care of each other. They're sharing. They're not closed off to anybody who walks in there. Like if you like look up a video of like the best places to eat in New York, it's always like, oh, come over here to this place in Chinatown or Little Italy or whatever it is, like Koreatown, and they obviously welcome the publicity and stuff. So it's not that they're closed off to this, but they want to keep things from how things were and move it forward without everybody loves pizza, but pizza wouldn't exist if some guy didn't come over from somewhere that wasn't here and take something that he was already making and then do it slightly differently with what he had on hand. And it all kind of feeds into the thing that actually, when you use the term "make America great," if you want to say that America is great, that would be one of the things, is that people are coming from all over the place, and regardless of minor communities made or whatever, it's the combination of all of us putting everything in together that makes it what it is.
What we have is 80 years of anti-Russian communist paranoia from the Cold War that basically led to the idea of the collective it became just a curse word, and so what you have is a conflation of concepts that led to a complete abandoning of something that was very important to our founding and was important to humans in general, which modern American culture is kind of flying in the face of, which was living in a community.
I always find the people who, whether it's trad wives or people on the carnivore diet, or whenever you have somebody who's fantasizing about the way things used to be, they never bring that kind of stuff up. They want all of their modern sort of sensibilities with some sort of, it almost feels like a dog whistle. Like there's something else going on there that they're trying to talk about. Because if you think about going back to before the 20s or whatever it was and having, I guess pre-industrial revolution, probably, because there's children working in factories and stuff. So obviously the collectivism isn't going on there either, but we wouldn't have gotten this far if hunter-gatherers were like, well, you can't hunt things in my neck of the woods. I live here. Or, only Rachel can pick these berries.
Yeah, and it's the scale that changes that, and obviously as those tiny communities grow into big economies, it becomes a problem of scale to make that a collective thing. Obviously, the biggest scale it's been tried at with direct democracy was in Athens, and that was not particularly successful, but saying in terms of a political community, that is, right, that's close enough, right, but it's not,
whoa.
it's technically
Hold
not. All right, so
don't make me hit the button. I'll do it.
You can hit the button all you like, because I got a point to make about ancient Rome, right?
Fuck it, we're in Rome time.
Fuck it, contributing to the public infrastructure was a main priority of the wealthy in Rome, and it was tied to their status. Like the wealthy would sponsor the creation of aqueducts, public bathhouses, public services, and they would do this for prestige in the community. They would sponsor infrastructure projects, and that was the only way to get ahead in Roman life, was to create public goods for the poorer classes, and it was seen as benefaction. I mean, this was something that you were contributing, you were giving back to the people with the wealth that you created, and it had served all of society, and this continued into Renaissance times, like the Medici sponsored artists, and basically sponsored the whole Renaissance, and allowed for just the evolution of art and culture because they chose to contribute to their community rather than just extract from it, right?
I guess there's something to be said about hey, if you reinvest in the community, it benefits you too.
Yeah.
You don't have to just you don't have to be a dragon and hoard the wealth all the time.
And, and maybe encourage it, encourage subsidies, tax breaks, for big infrastructure projects, anything that helps the community as a whole. It's really, I feel like it's a matter of encouraging it to make it happen. And even from the start, like in education, we should have civics classes, an understanding of the value of citizenship and of the nation, and understanding the political process, and then participating in it. And other programs. I mean, there should be public works, and I think that's in terms of reforming crime and punishment. A lot of minor offenses should not involve jail time. They should involve mandatory community service. Something that instills, a value of civic virtue, and then it helps you escape, basically a lifetime of judgment for that. I mean, if you go to jail, that's on your record for the rest of your life. It's a dangerous place to be. It's something that you really never come back from in a lot of cases, and it leads to high recidivism rates. Yep. And so if you can provide alternatives that also benefits the community, and I know it sounds like you're basically making prison labor, but it's just like, but no, it's a chance to contribute to your community, and then you feel a sense of responsibility, and you aren't just, your life isn't ruined for a minor offense, right?
Right.
So things like that. Maybe in exchange for, let's say, debt payment reprograms, in exchange for community service or civic duty.
I'd paint some walls to get out of some debt.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not giving them money.
Yeah, and maybe you might fucking actually provide something to society, because a lot of people just don't pay their debt, and then it's like, yeah, there's a loss there, but maybe they'd be much more likely to repay that debt if they can do it in the form of time, blood, sweat, and toil. Hopefully not blood, but this is fucking.
I hear the drums of war in the background.
Yeah, it's honestly, yeah. I just say, you just give me one tour of duty in exchange for all your debt wiped clean. Would you do it?
No.
What if we were going to the chair force and you were just gonna operate a drone?
What am I doing with the drone? If I was operating the drone it was a Roomba, and I was operating it remotely to clean.
You got to sign on before you get to know what the drone does.
No. No, because look, I voted for Obama. I indirectly voted for a lot of drone strikes.
I was gonna say he's the drone master in chief, man. Yeah,
the drone master in chief. He is the engineer. I don't think that I could do it. Knowing what we do when we go places and when we send drones places, none of that is worth it. I'll just enjoy not being able to get a credit card or a car because my credit's bad.
Yeah. So you think that let's say something like mandatory military service, you think definitely not a good move?
Yeah, I think that sets a bad precedent for the way the country would function. Right. You just start, like, it would be one thing if our economy wasn't a war economy, and service was like, you go into the Coast Guard and you would just watch the border, and or you'd get trained to, do at-sea rescues or something that actually freaking mattered. But if you're going to tell me I got to go to the Middle East and kill people for oil because I, crashed my car or something, or whatever your minor thing would be, I stole something. I accidentally put something in my pocket that
stole a loaf of bread.
It stole a loaf for my family. I only get 2 shillings a day. I was going to say, instead of military service, put them in a hard hat. Construction work.
Okay, yeah. Help build more housing, which we're in dire need of.
Let it become a Habitat for Humanity crossover, and have those people be, that way you're working directly with the people getting the home. I've done that before. I've worked with them before. I did some framing for a house one time, and I actually worked. They set us up into teams. I got put in the team with the people receiving the house, and that was 8-9 years ago. It stuck with me because you meet these people and hear their story and what they're going through, and you're doing something, even something small as, putting nails into a, window frame. I put a little bit of work into this family's future, you know what I mean? And got to make a human connection with somebody and think about that potential positive impact on someone who would have otherwise been shanked in prison,
Yeah.
is now, putting their energy to a collective benefit while also getting the thing I was talking about earlier with like the bus thing. You're seeing an aspect of your society, your culture, your area that you've never seen before. You're meeting these people and you're not alone. Other people are struggling like you are and you're helping them, then you're helping yourself. And it's also, if you go work at a construction group, you're developing some sort of trade work or something that you can then take when you are done with your penance, whatever you want to say, and you can then use those skills to continue working afterwards.
And again, promoting trades, which is something that, that just because we've been trying to funnel people into the college system for years, is something that's been massively overlooked. And so there's huge deficits in the trade industries. But
Boy,
I mean,
can tell you.
man, they pushed us so hard against trades when I was in high school. It was basically implied that you were going to be a loser, that you were going to make no money if you did anything other than go directly into college. And basically they were trying to get you to get liberal arts degrees, which is kind of insane. They weren't even pushing people towards STEM that much.
Is it college industrial complex?
It's something, I mean, it's a real thing. Yeah. And then not even promoting, again, like the functional degrees, that help keep society going. I mean, I think in recent years there's been a better push towards STEM, but there's still a tremendous lack of engineers. And so what I think is, for one, if we're talking about public goods, I think that some form of universal education for a set of degrees that coincide with a public need, I think could be tremendously valuable. And I know it becomes controversial because I'm saying like, well, maybe we wouldn't be funding liberal arts degrees, but if we can fund degrees that coincide with things that our society is in a dire need of, which is, again, STEM and as well as the trades, then you're incentivizing people to participate in parts of the economy that are direly needed, and then you fill those spots, and you show the value of being a plumber, an electrician, or the value of being an engineer or a teacher. And which is something that just there's no emphasis on whatsoever. I mean, it's all grind culture, and then maybe a little bit of value still put in being a doctor or a lawyer, but those are saturated fields.
Yeah,
and so nothing that really helps society run is being prized in our society, and we're kind of falling apart, and partly as a result of that.
Yeah, I get. In my particular super specific job that I have, we are a small group. There's only 5 of us, and we're trying to find another person to work in the shop with me, and it's not good. It takes weeks, months sometimes to get a new person in just to even get them in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And my job takes 6 months plus to get competent with it. It's not something you just roll in and do. It's not like a restaurant where there's turn and burn constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And you get these, I've met all kinds of people because of this, getting this revolving door, not really a revolving door. It's every 6 months or whatever. But when you meet these guys, they're usually down on their luck or whatever. And they've gone through some things and they're only here trying to get this job because it's the only one available to them. And the range of skills is so disparate. I've been given the ability to look at resumes now, and I'm looking at what these guys have done in the past and where they've gone and where they've come from, and people who aren't college educated and didn't develop a trade right away and didn't inherit money. There's this group of people outside of the Venn diagram that just getting bounced around because the last guy I just had he'd worked at one place and they got bought out, and there's another whole topic for a different discussion of, consolidation and then people getting fired, and, that disenfranchised him and he lost with this and didn't have a home. And, it was all this moving around, and he couldn't spend long enough at one place to develop a skill set and develop any confidence with this. And the things I do are adjacent to so many different construction, and we work with the police department, and we work with, marine companies and all these other things. And you see like a lot of people only get into the things that they're getting into like because of nepotism, basically. Like, oh, my uncle makes boat lifts, so I make boat lifts, but not because something funneled you there, because it was something that was part of the area's, infrastructure, or because you can say whatever you want about the fact that everybody retires here and that's why there's big fancy boats here or whatever. That's still an integral part of the world we live in. We live on the coasts. Boats are a part of life. You can't, you need to have some sort of support structure for that. And it should be regional. Like you go to school in Florida and you learn about boats, and you learn about, construction, and you learn about things that you're actually going to need to know to be here, and not just, oh, well, my uncle owns this company, and so I drive a truck around and I deliver boat lift cables. Like, it's not, I don't think the incentive is there, because
there's no incentive, and I think that there's less risk taking in the economy right now, just because the costs of everything, the difficulty of doing business. There's less people breaking into different industries. If you are going to take part in a trade, it's usually because, like you say, because your family already did it. Otherwise, you're not going to jump into some new industry. People are working out of desperation now. I mean, a lot of people aren't choosing work; they're taking whatever work they can.
It's white collar or nothing. Basically.
Yeah, and that's just not the reality in a lot of cases, man. And honestly, and as we move into AI, of course, I mean, potentially a lot of those white collar jobs might disappear. So,
that's a good thing about my job, is that there's literally no way that a robot could do my job. It's way too specific and requires hands and things that it'll be 100 years before we invent a robot that can do our job competently. And that's not like a thing to be arrogant or anything. Like, it's so like, I didn't know what I did existed until I got hired to do it. And I was like, I don't know what this is. This is crazy. And having the thought that like this guy, he's, he sells boxes, and this guy delivers things, and this guy, takes online orders. Like, none of those, like, they're all going to unfortunately lose their jobs in the next 10 years, But the blue collar jobs, the showing up and building posts or laying pipes or, rigging or whatever, it's all going to be stuff that will always require a human hand to do. You can have robots and drones align pillars or whatever you want, but the robots are never going to build a choking sling. They're never going to know how to put together a 9-part braid. They just won't be able to do it. There's just too much complexity of hand. I've seen those dogs fall over. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
They can pick themselves back up again, though.
They can do that, which is more than I can do some nights. But I'm gonna age out of that, because it kicks my butt. It hurts my back and my legs and my everything. But the job that I have is something that should be not just mine, but like construction. Everything there should be more incentives there. There should be larger, value assigned to the people doing the actual work, as opposed to the people who just make the decisions. Because I've met some of those guys, some of the guys who make the decisions, and they're just as clueless as I am.
Absolutely.
And they've been doing it for 30 more years, so they have a little more instinct. But we're all just humans, and everybody's going to make mistakes, and these guys don't plan like you would expect a guy running $1 billion company to plan. And it blows my mind some days. I come into work and go, everything should be flipped around.
Yeah. No, I find that, like, the as I move on to different jobs, the more money I make, oftentimes the less I do. And the less stressful the job is, my first jobs in construction were the hardest, and I was making shit money.
Yep.
But I was busting my ass every day, and it wasn't just physical work. It was absolutely mental work as well. I mean, if you can't keep your count up, if you can't do arithmetic, if you can't keep up mentally, then you're physically going to suffer. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, and it's something you have to be on top of things at all times. But we value those jobs very little, and yeah, it feels very inverted. And I do miss times like, remember, posters of Rosie the Riveter and stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, like
We can
you know,
do it.
we can do it, man. You know, the manufacturing was such a point of pride, and the fact
Yep.
that we built something here. And this just sounds like I'm like fucking talking about like bring American jobs.
That's a fantastic point, though, because
Yeah.
that actually ties into what I was originally talking about with cars. Like, so much of it was so much of our industry and what made us like powerful was building, just the factories and the and all, as things became refined, it all got shipped overseas, and you end up with dependence on vehicles that dispersonalize people and separate them into little boxes, and they weren't made by American hands, so there's no pride in what's, obviously there's still brands and there's still factories, but it's not like it used to be. And I'm one of the last people to go like I miss how it used to be, because I want to see what the future is, but there is an element of pride in the work and incentive for the work that should come back. Like, instead of outsourcing everything either to AI or to other countries, we should still be making it here and exporting it, like we do with corn.
Corn. What an interesting thing you bring up.
Yeah. I don't want to take away your thing, but
No. I think I only kind of like half did that one. I mean, I had some other points about say virtue, but I mean, I think that since you bring up this very interesting word, corn, we should probably start talking about it.
Sure. It just seemed like a
natural
shot
segue.
A natural segue. Yes.
What do you think about corn?
Farm-grown segue. I think it sucks. I understand that there's.
You don't like shucking it?
I do not like shucking it.
All right, but so before you tell me your points about corn, all right.
It sounds more absurd hearing another human say it, but
yeah. I just want to be like, all right, so like, are we talking about? So I mean, it's nothing to do with the enjoyment of corn as a food, right?
I mean, is it really that great? First of all,
well, okay, so I mean, corn did allow for the basically the advancements of Mesoamerican civilization. They would have died out thousands of years ago if they hadn't figured out the nixtamalization process and promoted corn production. So corn allowed.
I have no shade to throw at anything that's not right here.
I'm saying. All right.
It was important to the native tribes too. I completely understand. That's not my problem.
Why do you hate the Incans, Zach?
Because they're not the Incants.
Damn, you just hate the positivity.
Yeah, it's just toxic positivity,
So you're an Americans, not an American.
Yes, exactly. The nihilistic approach. Americans.
All right, let's give us some of your pessimism about corn, please.
Okay, so I wanted to do a rant about AI originally because that's the big thing to either be in love with or scared of. There doesn't seem to be a middle ground, really.
I'm both in love and scared.
Yeah, you're kind of a middle ground now. A lot of the points that I would have made against AI, I can make against corn. And
okay. Interesting.
That sounds absurd enough to be,
Is corn going to
as a trailer.
replace radiologist jobs in the next 5 years?
I think much like AI or taking human jobs, corn is taking the space of other, I would say, more nutritional crops. When you eat something and it comes out exactly the same as when it went in, I feel like that's a little sketchy. What's big corn on about? Is every kernel of corn just a little microchip? It's scanning your body on the way through.
Holy shit. Maybe all the nutritional value of corn is inside the kernel and just the outside looks like that because that's just the casing. Corn is the only crop that is grown in every state in the United States.
Is it every state?
Every single state?
I think there's like one guy in Nevada that does.
He's growing all the corn?
No, he's the only one growing corn. Oh. He's got like one bushel.
Get on with the point, Zach.
Anyway.
Get on with the episode.
We were talking about corn. We were talking about it not coming out. They're coming out the same way it went in.
All right. What is wrong with corn? How does it relate to AI
So
problems?
one of the common criticisms against AI is that it uses a shitload of water, right? That's one of the main sticking points. they water cool to produce the chips, and they have to cool it when they're training the AI and to cool it when it's actually working. Every time you query the AI, you ask it a question, it technically uses a little bit of water, right?
Yeah.
So every single question asked is like water consumed, and it's not, as far as I'm aware, it's potable water. It's like municipal water that they're taking. They're running taps in,
because it has to be really clean water,
for the chips. I know it does. Yeah, it has to be like ultra purified water.
Yeah.
So, I can't.
That's the problem, man.
He's like a Skyrim NPC.
Sometimes the corn on the
Stop
cob.
right there, cornel scum.
Sometimes it's just a corn on the cob, Zach. It's nothing more,
I
man.
mean, a unicorn. Unlike something like a paper mill, which would use water, but they use their own self-provided water, and it's non-potable water, so we wouldn't be using it anyway. They are taking what we would have used as drinking water or whatever, and obviously that is a criticism that I would hold, but for anything I might say about AI, corn far exceeds it, and it's like it's using all this water and it's being fed to hogs. It's being farted out. I'm shitting it out in the same form it's going in. It's being used for ethanol, which is probably arguably the most useful thing.
Like 40 or 50% of corn production is just for ethanol, something like that.
It's a lot, yeah. And it's the amount of water used for corn production and the amount of it lost through like soil evaporation and stuff like that. It's not very efficient with it. I mean, there is a sustainability element to it, I guess, but it's not.
Well, also, like out west, we're constantly having issues with droughts, but there isn't so much of a shortage of water, but it's how that water is distributed.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is used for agriculture, and a lot of it is wasted, actually. Like, there's a federal dispensation for farmers in the West Coast. A few landowners who own massive swaths of land out in California primarily, and they are guaranteed, and they have been guaranteed for like 60, 70 years, this kind of like water allocation, right?
Yeah.
And if they don't use this total amount of water that they've been allocated for all these years, then they lose that. It's kind of like if you have a surplus in the budget every year and you don't use it, and you lose it, right? And so a lot of times they don't need as much water as they get, and so they end up just dumping typically like hundreds of thousands of gallons of water.
I did not know that.
And so, yeah, it's part of the agricultural production. But like, meanwhile, you go out west and you go and take a shower, and there's a little sign that says you have exactly 3 minutes and 20 seconds to shower, and you must get out because we're running out of water over here. And they have a water problem, but a lot of it is just misallocation and basically corruption, because they don't want to lose access to this water they have. And so a lot of times they just dump it. They don't say, I don't need this water. They would rather dump it than lose that dispensation, right? And
I can't have you. Nobody will.
that's right, man. It's a toxic relationship they got, man.
I'm looking at you, buddy.
Stay right there. Don't move.
So the other thing being with, I'm just going to keep comparing it to AI because I think it's funny. They're trying to grab all this land and build these data centers to train the AI models and all this other stuff.
Don't make us start up fucking data centers, dude.
The fucking data centers. But I mean, they're taking up this land, but what are they doing with the corn? 96 million acres of land is just corn in this country. Think of what we could do with all that. We could literally plant anything else with nutritional value.
Yeah.
I know we take corn and we do a lot of things with the byproduct, but I think
high fructose corn syrup with it.
Yeah, great.
Something everything a growing boy needs.
Yeah, my stomach loves it.
It's just like sugar from corn. You ever see the commercials?
Yes.
My daughter loves it. Corn industry is heavily subsidized. Not only corn industry, I mean, the dairy industry, the meat industry, they're protected. The grains industry. Remember when they made the pyramid, the food pyramid, and then at the bottom was just eat breads, constantly eat breads, grains, cereals, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Which, that is, breads have been the staple of human diet for thousands of years. But this was specifically done in order to promote the grains industry.
Big bread.
Big fucking bread, man. And it works. Everyone is still eating bread, But and then they put meats at meats and vegetables are at the top of the pyramid, right under desserts or something like that, But I think milk's
another one. The milk lobby is crazy.
Milk lobby is insane, and the milk products lobby in general, the basically like the reason why that we put cheese on literally everything, like
'Cause
there's
it's good.
melted cheese and everything. Well, it is good, but I think that we've gone a little overboard. I mean,
Yes.
like you see the commercials, like tons of melted cheese on top of your cold cheese, which we melt for you right in front of your eyes, and they do the string pull. They're like, wow, look at all that cheese. The reason why that is because Benny's going to bring up history again. You can hit it. It's okay. I deserve this one. After World War II, all the granddads and the Audisons just woke up. So, what did you say, Sonny?
Cut that.
Listen,
Continue.
bro, everything I know is about World War II and the Roman Empire, right? I'm not very diverse.
It's a black hole for me. I'm willing to listen.
All right, well, here we go. So after World War II, all right, they had been boosting milk production in the 1940s to help feed the war efforts, right? And so after World War II, and also to for cattle, because they needed to feed all these guys overseas a lot of meat and stuff like that, right?
All that spam.
And so they had that spam, yeah, which is still a popular food item, in Hawaii.
Yeah.
It's a vibe, I mean, you cook it up on with some beans in a pan, spam ain't bad, man.
Yeah, okay.
Don't hit spam. You should have with your spam some corn.
Some
What I'm
corn.
saying? This would be a great combination.
A good hot cob with my spam.
Nice, man. Hot spam on the cob. That's what America's about. So we had started producing a lot of cattle in the 40s, and at the end of the war, all of a sudden they didn't need as much cattle, and so the people who were the farmers who ran all these cattle, they were faced with either slaughtering all these cattle, which they had millions and millions of cattle, or try to find a way to make a use of it. So they lobbied with government, and governments basically said, all right, we're going to buy all of your excess milk production from these cows, just because we want to support your industry. We don't want you to die out because you have all this product and you can't use it. And so they started buying this milk, and they basically passed it into law where they have to buy the surplus milk of the cattle industry, right? And so it eventually became time. They had so much milk, they didn't know what to do with it, so they started making it into cheese, and they put this cheese into caves in the Midwest, and they stored this cheese for decades. And there was so much cheese that Reagan started to give it out in the 1980s as a form of welfare to for extremely low costs to low-income families, and it was known as government cheese.
Okay, the government cheese.
Government cheese, man, yeah.
Gift to the welfare queen.
Mm-hmm. And another way to get rid of the cheese was to promote it in every way they possibly could. And so then they started promoting the use of dairy products and everything, including a little ad campaign from the 80s you might have remembered called Got Milk.
Got milk.
Yeah, Got Milk.
You've got milk.
Where the fucking... so it was a weird synergy of historic things, man. But
Completely incomprehensible to the children.
yeah, and they have no idea what's going on, but it's okay.
There's a cat on the screen. It doesn't matter.
This is for us boomers.
Corn,
Just
cats.
stare at the kids, 6'7". Stare at the kitty, 6'7". You're good.
Is that are
Skibbity
you
toilets.
hypnotizing the audience? Stare at the cat. 6'7".
Skibbity 6'7", everybody.
Gat.
Yeah. Weren't we supposed to be like
very nice
making
and
America
focused
great
here.
or something?
We were trying to make America great. We were trying to build the utopia.
I think what we've proven is the definition of utopia, which is a place that cannot exist, because we started off with great plans and we ended up with the corn lobby.
I think the anti-corn lobby should finally show up here. I think we should replace a lot of the corn with not corn.
What's a better product? What's a better crop?
Literally, like green beans, anything. Just
something with some fiber.
Yeah, help the people. Have
People
good.
honestly, 95% of people don't have sufficient fiber intake.
I can believe it.
All you need is like 40 grams a day. Most people don't get anywhere near that.
What even has fiber in it?
Not corn, that's for sure. All right, let me ask you this, right? Your tacos, corn or flour or tortillas?
Corn.
Gotcha!
Yeah!
I was going to say, how does this help heal the United States of America, Zach?
When we replace... No, I'm not getting rid of corn. I'm just devaluing and displacing some of the corn.
Oh, okay. All right.
let some other
You're just
people.
going to put the corn in camps, all right? Make the corn work, all right? You're just going to move the corn away.
I'm going to require the corn to have identification that the corn has been here long
You're
enough.
going to tattoo the corn.
Or I'm going to
with
send
numbers.
the corn back to El Salvador.
Back to...
And if the corn resists at all, it's going to Guantanamo
I think
Bay.
that corn has an MS-13 tattoo, I believe.
I think
I can
so.
see it right there.
Yeah.
I think it's written in like Morse code
Is it
the
blue or
kernels.
yellow?
Let me hit you with one, all right? All right, let me hit
Go
you
ahead.
with one of my...
Give me some good shit.
All right, I got prison and crime reform.
Wrong.
Right? All right, never mind. Fuck it. I want to change the structure of punishments, all right? I want to make a clear division between what I'd call crimes against humanity and then petty crimes, all right? So imagine this, all right? So let's say that's you kill someone, you rape someone, all right? So you do something, maybe you kill multiple people, rape multiple people, right? So you blow up a building, all right? So you cause bodily harm to another person, that in a verifiably intentional way, right? With a corn cob. And we bring it back.
It can't go away.
And then, so what do you do with that person? I mean, oftentimes, they end up, just filling out the prison system, just hanging out there for decades, costing, either taxpayer dollars or in the case of private prisons, building revenue for the private prison industry, right? And then also you've got people who did maybe, dealt some drugs, maybe drove too fast, a couple other things like that. And they're also maybe filling out the prison system, maybe shouldn't potentially be there, So what I think, there should be a stark difference between crimes that involve hurting other human beings and those that don't directly. And the ones that do directly hurt other human beings should be punished extremely severely, more severely than we do, many of them with the death penalty. And then the crimes that don't involve harming other human beings should be paid with just civil service, community service, shouldn't involve jail time. There's a lot of people in jails that should not be, and there's a lot of people in prisons for extremely heinous crimes that shouldn't just be on the earth anymore, And so I think that it would be a much more effective deterrent to crime, right, if you had a more draconian punishment for actual, provably inhumane crimes, and then if you had much more reasonable and then civic-minded punishments for minor infractions.
I get where you're coming from. I can't say that I want to go full draconian necessarily. Yeah. I feel like that might be a bit harsh, but I can't sit here.
Well, it's unconstitutional, obviously.
Unconstitutional. So I feel like let's just kill the people who do bad thing, sufficiently bad thing. I feel like it's an emotional sort of response to something.
Yeah.
Like this should not be happening. Let's remove these people.
Well, but what is besides the emotional arguments, what is the functional arguments for keeping people alive who have shown a continuous predilection for violent crime and show no sign of remorse or no sign for, developing out of that?
All I can think of as you're saying that is outlier cases. Like, it's obviously you want to put these people through some sort of a program to rehabilitate them first, and then I just picture, okay, you're going through a rehabilitation program, and I'm picturing the guys in a line walking in their jumpsuits, and they're like, if you fail this program, they're gonna kill you. Like, this is pass or die. And like, you have to go through and you have to reassimilate into society and become a construction worker, or they're going to take you out back and old yell at your ass. Like, it obviously won't literally be that, but at what point it's like a poorly trained or a poorly educated child who just does the thing out of fear, not because they learned the value of the thing that they're doing. And so you can mimic, or like somebody who's like, low functioning autism or something, where you can mask and you're performing these things, but there's a fundamental disconnect between your actions and the understanding of why.
Yeah, and I think that the question becomes whether a certain class of criminal is able to be rehabilitated.
Yeah.
You know, because obviously there is, where is the line? There's definitely in some cases a second chance, potentially. You know, I mean, if in cases of manslaughter, accidental, death, that's not a case of like, you should be eliminated, But I'm talking about, let's say someone has multiple murder offenses, multiple rape offenses, I mean, multiple times where there is clear trackable evidence that they did this crime, that they have no remorse for this crime. They're going to do this crime again if they get out, right? And then you're just letting them exist in this prison system for years and years and years. And why are they still there, right? And they're beyond any chance of redemption. Obviously, there has to be some criteria for this. I mean, when it
Very
becomes
stringent
too
criteria,
late. Yeah, and currently now, I mean, even in the states when the death penalty is still in effect, it's a extremely long and difficult legal process. I mean, it can take decades sometimes to make that happen, and so a person sitting there this whole time, because they are very, very understandably careful when they do this, because there is a certain chance that they got it wrong, the evidence is incorrect, but
that's my concern.
yeah, and it is a concern, but what we're talking about is, maybe less than 1% of the time, and that's still a significant number when you're killing a person. But by and large, you are allowing basically demons to exist, and funding their existence. There's an addendum point here. I mean, we're also legalizing vice as a second component of this thing. All right, I've had some misgivings about this in the past. In some ways, I feel like, just as on a moral basis, I feel like some drugs should stay illegal. But I think that's the value of basically defunding the cartels itself is, and it is worth, the potential short-term costs of introducing the public, to something which is a little more extreme, and also the fact that there would be much less concern over accidental deaths and overdoses, because it would be clean, regulated, and you could have more proper education and awareness of how to avoid accidental injury. And so I think that when you legalize, and properly regulate and tax a substance, I mean, just the criminality and danger with it just goes down tremendously. And obviously, we're not winning the war on drugs. I mean, that's a foregone conclusion.
Well, it was a fabricated war to begin with. Of course,
right.
We're not going to win it. I think that there's some value in having some sort of base level education about it ahead of time, and taking like the Red Scare out of certain drugs too. Because when you tell somebody they can't do something, it makes them want to do it.
Yeah.
So if it's just like, your mom does cocaine, someone's gonna be like, oh, that's lame, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you need to people need to be aware of the downsides of things, and and to understand that. I mean, because basically all anti-drug campaigns in the past, they really don't want to get into the real details of why drugs are bad, and so they usually just say drugs are bad, don't do them. But what they aren't really conveying to you is that the reason why drugs are bad is because they're so fucking good, and that they're so good that it can ruin your life, because you're not supposed to feel things that are that intense and powerful in a short term, and they create a huge deficit in your mind and body that some people never recover from. And that's a difficult thing to educate people without experiencing something like addiction personally.
You almost basically just described sex too, though. Like I'm like, all jokes aside, like realistically. No, I just mean from the sense of like being able to do something that gives you a feeling that you cannot get anywhere else.
Yeah.
And
that's manufactured, that we created this feeling that is not supposed to exist. Right?
But it's manipulating chemicals that are already in your head.
Yeah.
And it's not manufactured in the same way that sex is, but much like it's more accessible, honestly, which makes it almost worse. In that way, if we're gonna go down that,
drugs are more accessible than sex.
No, I'm saying the other way around.
Okay, I was gonna say depends on how incel you are, I guess. But
sex being more accessible, and yes, it doesn't have as intense of an effect, but people absolutely get addicted to sex. It completely alters their brain chemistry. How much violence and bad takes and whatever come from the kernel of sex. You know, it is
Really, Zach? The kernel of sex? Is that what you call it?
It's my next book I'm writing, The Kernel of Sex, Corn's Rise to Power in the Adult Film Industry. The root cause of some of these like stupid arguments about things, misogyny, all of these things are rooted in sex. And the way that this can be interpreted to be, you know, you could say, oh, it's really bad for people. I've made the joke that people shouldn't have their genitals and whatever, because it would get rid of a lot of that stuff.
I don't know if that was a joke. I feel like you took that seriously because you made the same points 6 months apart twice. You're like, I really need people to know that they
haven't
shouldn't
let
have
go.
genitals.
I haven't let go of it, and I've designed a part. I was writing a book, and that was part of the world of that I've designed
the world with no genitals.
It's a sci-fi world, and that's part of the culture.
Interesting. So everyone's like a Ken doll when they don't have genitals.
They are born without reproductive ability at all. They're not humans, so they won't have the same parts and pieces.
I didn't know you got a whole thing around this.
I can show you later. I have a whole thing.
Well,
yeah.
all right.
So I've been working on it on and off in my head and in paper and stuff since I was like a teenager. But it's not. So one aspect is like that. I said it as a joke that you would go and you'd earn the ability to reproduce because it's a huge responsibility. It's literally creating life. There should be more, weight added to that. But you can just walk down the street and just take it from somebody technically. Like
their virginity? What do you mean?
Like you can rape is a thing that exists. It's a thing that you can do. Like you can't go up to somebody and force a blunt in their mouth and have them smoke it the same way that somebody could attack a woman on the street and force the situation of sex upon them. And the way that changed, like I saw a video that's a bad way to start a point.
Tell us about this video.
So there's this guy who was he was in some third world country and he was talking to a group of dudes and they're like just casually talking about raping. Like that's just a thing that they do. And there's a video of a woman there was a Japanese woman in India and she was in they were having a festival, but she was just surrounded by men who were like smacking her and covering her and like paint and shit. And they were messing with her and they were pulling on her and moving her all over the place. And they're all laughing and giggling and whatever. And one guy's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, even if that was staged, like that does happen to people.
Yeah.
And that gets carried to extremes. And all of that is driven by, sexual desire. Like I'm not trying to take it too far away from what you were talking about, but much in the same way that you would want to try to protect people from themselves with a law. I feel like you don't make sex illegal just because some people can't be trusted. You prosecute the things that are done wrong.
Yeah.
But sex shouldn't be illegal. Like everybody should be able to, if everybody's consenting, everybody should do what
so prostitution should also be legal, you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, I agree with
it's
that.
a business.
Yeah.
If someone is doing it willfully and they chose to do it and that's how they want to make their money, what is the issue?
Yeah, it tends to be, of course, just like girls who work in strip clubs. It's a very exploitative industry, and it's not particularly healthy for the girls to work there. But again, if women are going to seek those, obviously men perform in this as well, but obviously predominantly we're talking about women because that's the way the industry is. If people are going to pursue that industry, regardless, it should at least be regulated. It should at least be, watched and safer than being entirely on Skid Row with a inherent criminality to it, because when you put criminality into something, it's going to lead to death, to dangerous situations, and that's the same thing I'm talking about with drugs, right? And to say, it just because something is dangerous does not mean that making it illegal is going to make it less dangerous. It's arguably, universally, it makes stuff more dangerous, look at fucking Prohibition, man. Did Prohibition stop people drinking alcohol? No.
It made it more dangerous, yeah.
It just, made it more dangerous, and yet everyone was drinking all the time, and so...
that would be my hot take for the episode, I still don't think alcohol should be legal, personally.
I think it's a lot worse than some stuff that isn't legal, yeah.
Well, how the hell is... alcohol is actually killing people. At a scale that most other drugs combined are not.
Well, I think that's it's an integral part to our and many other cultures,
Yeah.
and so it's a much less difficult thing to just extract from people. I mean, people are going to drink about it because it's such a part of growing up, and then also being old. It's I mean,
You can't get old without a 40 by your side.
yeah, literally. I mean, it's like, eventually it molds into like the glass of whiskey, I mean, as you're sitting there just sighing at all your kids, decisions. And sorry, I was just talking to my
I'm going to give you an ultimatum.
Yeah.
Alcohol or cars?
Oh, wait, as to ban, or like if I had to choose one to keep?
For the country, which one do you think
Would I ban?
Which one should we ban?
Well, I mean, like move towards not having. I mean, because it's like. I mean, yeah, I think that's. I like to drink occasionally, even though it's I'm technically not supposed to because my condition. I mean, I would say that we can do without cars.
Or let's say if
Okay,
the
like
law
in
were
an ideal society.
the law were to come down right now,
Yeah.
full stop, cold turkey, right this second, like what just happened with Japan and China. I don't know if you heard about that, but
What?
Where the Japanese prime minister spoke out in defense of Taiwan and said that if China keeps trying to take Taiwan, that they're going to provoke, aggro from Japan, which is weird because Japan doesn't have a standing military.
Yeah,
it's
they're
mostly
not
our
allowed
military
to
bases.
Still, yeah. They're saying that if China attacks Taiwan, someone else over there is going to attack.
We're going to offload that to America. But I mean, on one hand, that and then also like I'm glad somebody's standing up for Taiwan because what's happening with that situation has always been bullshit. So literally within, I think it was like 30 minutes, the government of China was like, nothing Japanese. You cannot have anything culturally Japanese at all. There was a Japanese singer who's on tour. She does like anime openings and stuff. That's what she's famous for.
Yeah.
And she was in China doing a show. There's a video of guys walking on stage going, "We got to get the hell out of here." And they pull her off stage, canceled her show in the middle of her show because of the fallout from that.
Interesting.
And one of the games I play on my phone, they had a big update coming in like a week, and it was Japan themed. The big 4.0 update was Japan themed, and they had to delay the update because they can't have it be Japan themed anymore. So they have to redo literally like an entire video game's worth of work because and they have to take out all the references to Japan. The banning of something
you asked me if I choose one.
Yeah. That if you now take what I was just telling you about Japan and China and drop that into this scenario, but it's either cars or alcohol, which would be more disastrous to ban immediately?
Well, the cars, of course.
You think so?
The entire economy would shut down. That's just like, because you just can't do that. I mean, you can progress like over the course of like 20 years towards a less car centric society.
Car apocalypse.
Yeah, car apocalypse.
A corn apocalypse.
But you can't. But like alcohol, you could technically say, all right. I mean, I'm sorry. The bars are going out of business. Or you're gonna have to sell sodas, or whatever. I mean, and you could shut down the liquor stores. But it's like that you could do. It wouldn't work, but
Turn
you could
every
do it.
bar into a car dealership.
There you go, to a corn dealership, and then there goes your economy, man. So I think that
economy.
I would stop it. I think that the issue with American gun culture is not which types of gun are legal and what are not. I mean, I think it's a lot more to do with Americans' attitudes towards guns and gun ownership.
Being
and I
really
think
flippant with firearms, would you say?
No, what do you mean?
Just being really casual
What do you
about
mean?
guns.
What are you trying to say?
Everybody's just kind of brandishing the guns about.
We are. It's, I'd like to compare it to, say, the gun culture of Switzerland, right, which is another country that has very wide and almost universal gun ownership, and it's built into their constitution, and yet they have extremely low rates of gun crime, and I think that it's a success story of gun ownership. I think the Second Amendment is very important. I think it's important to our founding as a country, and I think it's important to our identity as a country. And I think that just banning guns is just unfeasible given our status and our location and the way guns are just flowing over the border constantly. And there's way more guns in America than there are people. But I think the issue is that we treat it as a right and not a responsibility, similar to the aspects of civic virtue. I think there should be...
And driving.
Yeah. Again, it's all about me. It's not about what my value to the community is. And if people understood that the purpose of guns is, yes, self-defense, but also protection of the community, then they would understand that it's a responsibility to own a gun, that it's a dangerous thing, that you need to have training, you need to be efficient with it, you need to train yourself and your family. That they are tools, they're not toys, and it's not something about your self-identity, right? It's a tool, and you have a responsibility to use it and be responsible with it, and so
If
that's something that's
dangerous,
lacking.
why toy-shaped?
I mean, it just looks so cool, man. What do you mean?
That's exactly the problem.
Point is, I would imagine you disagree with me on this topic, What do you think?
Unfortunately, I don't know that I do. I think that the issue with guns is the people that wield them and own them. And for me, a conversation about guns isn't about guns. It's about mental health. It's about...
Absolutely.
It goes back to the car thing. Not a lot, but I know gun deaths are tied to, cops pulling people over, people pulling other people over, road rage. It's school shooters are all dispossessed young white guys almost exclusively. And that's you can talk about the caliber of gun or whatever the hell you want, but at the end of the day, the only reason these things happen are because people are unwell.
Yeah.
And they fall out of a sort of socially noticeable sort of head sense where they sit isolated in a room and they start churning the corn and
the corn's just shucking in their minds, man, until they just
go,
I've had enough corn.
They're sitting in corny despair, and they have to deal with it somehow. I'm trying to mix.
I'm gonna blow your fucking brains out if you mention corn one more time.
Let's get it over with. Corn.
All right.
So you get these, I can't think of a scenario where you could bring up gun violence or any issue with guns and not tie it to something more systemic to deal with.
Yeah,
first.
It's a major oversimplification, I feel, to just say we can ban guns and the problem will go away. The problem may transform, but the problem will morph and potentially even get worse.
You need a multi-pronged approach. You need to regulate guns properly. There needs to be laws on how to get them, who can get them, and why. I'm not allowed to own guns because of stuff going on up here. So that's already kind of in the right direction, I guess, but it feels like a blanket thing. You have to address the regulation of firearms, but you also need to address the underlying causes of what the people are doing with the firearms. Yeah.
And also, it's heavily cultural. It is pharmaceutical as well, and it's something that has been increasing exponentially in recent years. If you just look back, let's say even 100 years ago, we're not talking about musket times. There were automatic weapons. There was a lot of ordnance available. This was before even the assault weapons ban. This was a time when a regular person could get a submachine gun with not much difficulty in 1920s, 1930s, and own it. And meanwhile, there were virtually zero mass shootings. Did not happen. It was unheard of. There was one shooting in Congress, actually, in the 1940s. I believe it was related to Puerto Rican independence. I forget the exact particulars, but that's the only shooting that comes up in the 1940s. It didn't happen, and then as you fast forward into the 1960s and 70s, they start to happen, coinciding with cultural unrest, a kind of degradation in what people considered was a more simple, unified country, right? And then as we move into today, it's literally everywhere. It's so normalized that some days it doesn't even make the news. It's
the fact that one guy gets shot, but a bunch of people were murdered
on the same day, and it doesn't
get
even get traction. And it's that normalized. And if you look at it as just guns, again, it makes no sense because in times with much greater access to guns, it wasn't a problem. I mean, it's clearly a lot more to do with mental health, with collective health and trust and civil in our society, with kind of degradation of our social fabric, with the internet. you cannot get rid of the guns in the United States. And we've got massive land borders. Even if you completely banned the sale and ownership of guns, collected them all, melted them, and then made all selling of guns illegal, there would still be millions of guns flowing through the borders all the time.
You already talked about prohibition. It'll be the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's impossible. But what you can do is accept that guns are part of the fabric of the country, and you need to change people's relationship with them in order to foster any kind of safety and responsibility. And so I think it's just something that people, and maybe you could even subsidize this with free gun safety classes, something that's government funded. Just and then obviously some form of licensure is, I think, necessary. What do you think, Kitty? She says ACAB.
The entire state of Georgia says ACAB.
Oh, you want this one? Yeah.
I don't know.
She has 27 toes and she still can't hold.
I was gonna say, isn't Georgia where they're building Cop City? I don't think Georgia's very
Cop
ACAB.
City?
Yeah, they're building like a giant training facility out in the forest outside of Atlanta. I think it was. I think it's literally just called Cop City. I mean, they probably have an official name for it, but it's been protested.
It's probably good that they're training them more.
But we both know that it's not, the kind of training they would need.
You don't think it's a matter of training? Okay, so let's move on to Zach's last points.
Yeah, you're real sneaky there.
You want to abolish police? Tell me what that entails.
The crazy take is yes. Tell
me what your realistic take is. Like in the ideal Zach world, I mean, how would policing be done?
There wouldn't be police as we know them.
Okay.
The responsibilities of the police force would be split amongst multiple
social workers and
social work. Yeah. So I was just calling them mediators. There would be a group of mediators who you would take like 4, 6, 8 year classes of de-escalation, self-defense, stuff like that, social work, all this other stuff that you would have to know to be the ones getting called for domestic calls and stuff like that. You handle that kind of thing. Some of the good, like you see videos of like a cop being called and he runs out into a mangrove forest to save a little girl that's drowning or whatever. Like they perform,
like 20 different jobs.
20 different. That's I think the main thing is on a good faith argument, even without my hyper liberal nonsense. Like cops, there's too much expected of police as they are now anyway, and taking those responsibilities and splitting them down to other things. Either creating new agencies or diluting it down into other agencies or whatever it needs to happen.
You're not abolishing police. You're just changing the definition of policing and kind of expanding it to something that makes more sense for individual use cases. I mean, are you still going to have armed policemen?
I don't think so.
Not at all?
I don't think so.
Well, how do people respond how do we respond as a society to violent crime? Are we putting that responsibility on armed citizens?
I mean, that might dovetail with the gun conversation. Like if you're expecting people, the Second Amendment is the ability to bear arms, and you have this whole sort of process to prosecute crimes and stuff. There's citizens arrest already exists, and there's probably a whole separate conversation to have of who specifically would do the protecting. Yeah. But the police have always had protect and serve as their motto. But there's a court case that you can go find right now. I don't remember the exact name of the court case. They have been ruled that doesn't mean anything. They are not required to protect us. If we're being attacked, they actually are not under any obligation to actually save us. When there's a school shooting going on and there's 17 cops and there's one guy waiting outside and one guy sneaks in to get his daughter specifically, where's the argument for that? Because they're already not doing it. Whenever something happens to you, how often have you actually been saved by the police? Like something violent was going to happen to you. If someone's going to come at you and attack you, you don't have time to call the police anyway. Yeah. And by the time they would even get the call to get to you, like even in good faith, by the time they could get to you, you've already been stabbed 6 times. A woman has already been raped. Somebody's already been kidnapped.
Yeah. So that bolsters the case for personal self-defense, right?
And if everybody is trained to use firearms responsibly and can protect themselves, and then we actually get into the nitty-gritty of proper crime prosecution and the thing you were talking about earlier about, having this dividing line of like basically like misdemeanors and felons, and like the felons can get fucked and then the misdemeanors we'll just have you paint a wall or something. There's incentive there. Florida has a stand your ground rule as it is as well.
It's iffy in its actual, like practice, like personal cases I've known. Even if you do act in self-defense and it's reasonably provable, you will still be arrested and you will still have a legal battle to go through.
Yeah.
But in the bright side, you're not dead. But it's like at the same time, it's not as well protected as you would think, the right to self-defense, even in a relatively gun-friendly state like Florida.
Yeah. I don't think that is even an indictment against what I'm saying anyway, because like, okay, a guy attacks you, you defend yourself, and now you have some litigation to do.
Yeah, why is that? And so the question is, I would say that for most people, if they're interacting with the police, it's a really bad day. Like if they see or have to interact with a cop, it's going to be the worst time they've had in a long time, which puts them on edge already and makes it a very uncomfortable interaction. I think a big thing is just the alienation from police to the community. Like, like you look at, movies like It's a Wonderful Life, like he's walking down the street and the cop on the corner, says like, "Hey Frank, how you doing? How's the wife?" And they have this personal relationship, and the cops would be part of your community. You knew the police and it was a person you trusted. Now, obviously scale was a factor. We can't just know all the cops, but it's like, I think that there needs to be an enhanced sense of public outreach and, again, civic service, like so that you understand, you should believe that the police are there for you. But we don't feel like that at all, because it seems like they're to protect themselves and other cops, because that's the culture they're in, and it becomes a very us versus them culture, because especially because if there is a general animosity towards police, which is not bred unnaturally, it comes from real fears, then it just means that cops become isolated because of that, and then it becomes very much it's them versus us, and then it just gets worse from there. But, the idea of no police, I think the issue generally is that what's keeping society generally polite is not just people owning guns, it's knowing that there is... you can't just go on a GTA rampage and expect that to go well for you, because maybe in an instant, if you get mugged or something like that, the cop's not going to be there for you. But if someone is going on an extended violent spree, then there is going to be a violent force that is going to quell that, right?
Well,
like say uprising.
I'm gonna say my like. Obviously, the things I'm saying are kind of naive, but I was going to say we have the National Guard. I'm not saying that we should get rid of any sort of...
But imagine deploying that in a small scale anytime there's some kind of violence kind of events, right, that becomes larger than the scale that one person can.
Imagine that happening in our country. Just
imagine them sending them to a city.
Imagine the National Guard being used against U.S. citizens casually.
It's a good thing we only have to imagine this.
Yeah.
In the crazy. In this corntopia that we live in.
This corntopia. So no, but again, that also being like it seems like such a crazy overreach to employ the National Guard. And I be honest, I don't know why the National Guard exists, because outside of crazy super shit happening, I don't know what they're ever used for out in what we're seeing right now.
Well, yeah, it's wide scale, civil unrest generally. And you would not send the Army or the Marines into a domestic...
Let's say, that again, stupid ideas from Armchair Guy.
Yeah.
Let's say the community... a given community, like say the Bronx or the Clearwater, Florida, is responsible. Yeah,
the face.
Damn.
I'm sorry.
The entire
Let me
state
just
of
finish
Georgia.
the job here.
Cop City must go. Let's say an entire community like this is responsible for its own policing.
Okay.
In the sense of like maybe,
but they are already
not necessarily
they have,
a militia.
If there's a local police, but you're saying if it's all just.
Like mediators exist, firemen exist, first responders, all that stuff. All that stuff is still there.
Yeah.
Arbitration. So let's say there would be, there's already a city council. Let's say part of the city council, there's some sort of like, you have like a city watch, the, concerned citizens brigade, whatever, the Sense of Right Alliance, whatever you want to say. So you have this, but then they have let's say a liaison with the National Guard with them as part of the group, and everyone would have one person who's like a National Guard representative,
and he's gonna press the button if it gets too crazy.
Not necessarily, but let's say there'd be like a garrison in a region, and it's less like we're here to quell like an uprising or like spree shooter. I would consider that in the same degree of like if some guy is running around in a fucking Dodge Durango with an Uzi out the window and he's just mowing people down. That seems like the National Guard could get involved.
Yeah.
Like instead of having 17...
But it takes a long time to mobilize that. I mean, okay, so cops,
so
yes, it takes a long time.
So it wouldn't.
Well, I mean, yeah, and that's going to be difficult to organize, though. I mean, and I guess it does play well into the idea of the well-regulated militia, right? You know, and so that should be something that exists at a local level. And, you know, in communities it used to, and people used to take up arms, you know, for labor uprisings, you know, which is something that we know we don't teach our kids about is the labor history of the United States, but that's another matter. But so it's
another
like
day older and deeper and down.
16 times. So say the police take 45 minutes to respond to your call, right? That's 45 minutes. For the National Guard, it might take them a day to mobilize on a regional basis, you know. And so at that point, how many people could die? You know, and we don't think, living in the society we live in, that it's likely that there could be a massive armed uprising or an events that involves massive death, you know, or other crime just spurring out of nowhere. But it happens. I mean, like, there was a building that was taken over, you know, by some kind of a gang in what was that, in Denver, Colorado? They just took over an entire building, right? Mm-hmm. You know, they were armed, and if something like this happens, and a bunch of armed people are causing violence among the populace. Because if we don't have police, the risk is that warlords are going to develop, and it's going to be a case of just, you know, of the armed versus the unarmed. And this is, as much as I've had fantasies of anarcho-capitalism, you know, where it's just, you know, non-aggression pact, this is my property and this is my tank, and get the fuck off my property or I'll shoot you with my tank kind of thing. It's like the only thing that's protecting us from warlords is some sort of collective security device, you know, that keeps things from
well, we do have warlords now. That's kind of the problem. They're just police chiefs.
I mean, yeah, there is undue power among the police, you know, and any time there's been undue power, there should be some sort of a check to, you know, to limit that, you know, and
or maybe make a sister organization alongside them that's literally a check and balance to the police.
Well, they're supposed to be internal affairs, you know, they're supposed to be, but then, you know, it's so hard to have true accountability when you have cops, you know, kind of regulating other cops. You know, and especially since the police system is almost like is revenue based. You know, I mean, like revenue based policing is a crazy thing, and it should never be a profit based industry. It's basically like you have a private military almost. You know,
and what they treat
it like that.
They're getting APCs and fucking tanks and shit that they don't need. You know, to like.
But I don't think that what they need is less training. That's for sure. I mean,
no. In fact, it's the other way around.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like you should have to go like removing the abolish the police. Like I'm just doing it to be incendiary.
Yeah, of course.
Like an actual thing
that's what I asked for. So yeah.
Yeah, my actual take on what we should actually do in real life. I don't feel like you should be able to even be a cop without going through as much training as a surgeon requires, because you sometimes have
12 years of school.
Yeah, you have as much power over life and death with it less accountability.
I mean, there's less like fine motor skills, and I would say it's more like let's say like
fine motor skills, but like
let's say like basic training to join the military. All right, you know, I mean, you should have at least basic training, and then you should obviously have de-escalation training. And you should have, and it's not just that. I mean, yeah, I mean, the question is how do you employ social workers, de-escalation specialists, unarmed civil workers, when the line between a non-violent and a violent situation is very, very difficult to discern, and you never really know when an armed person is going to be necessary. There could be even a domestic violence call could become dangerous, deadly very quickly. So how do you know when it's appropriate to just send in an unarmed social worker and when to send in someone who is armed?
So in my notes, I wrote that the mediators would be trained in self-defense, like they would have basic training. So I mean, that could be part of the discussion whether they should be armed or not.
Well, if they're not armed, what are they doing? Taekwondo? I mean, what's the theory here?
Yeah, I mean, how? Yeah, okay. So this again would combine with things we've already talked about with mental health and proper gun regulation and things like that. This would all kind of come together. And the mediators would not go a one unarmed person. It might be one person is armed, one is not, or they would always be at least in a pair or something. You go in a little squad, and they're always together. But it's not 3 dudes in body armor with tasers and batons and shit showing up at your front door.
Yeah,
it would be you would lead with the mediator, and they are trained for years to de-escalate first.
Okay, I like this. And it gives accountability as well because, we have body cams, but those can be switched off. And for one, it should be absolutely illegal to switch those off, I mean, it's basically destroying
body cameras
evidence.
should also live feed to the internet at all times.
I like that, yeah.
It should always be streaming to the cloud.
Do they turn those off if they pee?
They wouldn't aim down at their dicks.
Do we have to watch them in the bathroom, like taking a shit? Like,
you know what?
I don't know how those work.
If you're gonna go out of your way to sign up to be some fucking glorified protector of humanity, you should give up something. You should give up years of your time to learn how to actually protect people properly, not 6 months and a gun. And you should give up some of your privacy and safety yourself. Because if you're going to put yourself in that position, you want to be paid to do it too. You're not volunteering. People are paying you pretty fucking good money to drive around in a fancy car and pull people over and have way too much authority. No, I don't want to see you piss, but at the same time, like there needs to be more to what we're doing as it is. There needs to be more accountability. There needs to be way fucking more training. They don't need APCs and tanks. They don't like.
Well, do you think that there should still be a specialized SWAT team for those kind of events?
I mean, like when you have 6 dudes with Spetsnaz shotguns and they're holding up a bank.
Well, yeah, and that's why they got the APCs if they do. They're not just rolling those out for traffic stops.
Probably for now.
I mean, what they do roll out is like if you ever get pulled over in Georgia, they pull you over in like $120,000 Corvettes, which fucking, twin turbo mods and shit, and a big wing looks like a Batmobile. And you're like, where'd you get all this money from? And we know where they got this money from.
Absolutely. And that is also part of the problem. So no, I don't. I can make all sorts of goofy ass incendiary statements. We shouldn't have cops at all. It should just be anarchy all the time. I don't actually think that, but I think there's a way to take what we have, and like a lot of the people who are cops now probably mean well and are good people and are trying to do good things, and that's where they are. But there's some, pardon my Espanol, so there's some pieces of shit that should not have that job.
¿Qué me estás haciendo, man?
Pardon my
yeah, it's. I think that. Yeah, I mean, and you can be salacious and say, defund the police. That's the statement. But the real answer, of course, is is more training, more oversight. A change in our attitude towards policing and the relationship between the police and the public, and it's something needs to change.
I think it's just removal of carte blanche. Like I don't think they should give them everything that they fucking need every single second. They don't need $120,000 supercar. They don't.
Yeah, no.
There's no argument for that. Like, I get that you need some high-end response thing, and there's obviously logistics for that, but a lot of our country is so obsessed with the idea of, like, they have to be the biggest and the meanest at all times because, no, if we fix all the other issues we've talked about, and we work on mental health, and we work on, affordability for things, and we make things more walkable so people aren't driving and getting road rage, like the need for the cops in the first place is going to start to fizzle at the edges, and that's going to become less necessary over time, so then we can start scaling it back. So when I say defund the police, I don't mean make it so that they have no money, just make it so that they're not making billions of dollars and spending it on sports cars and having more armory than part of our military. Like, there should be, and again, more training. Take the funding out of the equipment and put it into training. Yeah. So if Cop City was, de-escalation training, sure, but it's military training. It's fucking military tactics. They don't need military tactics. We're not facing constant terrorism at all times, except for our own president. But there's not people popping up out of the ground with like mole men style trying to blow up buildings.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's somebody who's severely sick and could probably have been talked down or just needed to be able to afford health care to be on the right meds. And that would have never fucking happened in the first place. So we don't need the cops to escalate to that.
What are we talking about? Oh, yeah. This is Ben and Zach's Great Society, Eudaimonia, Utopia. We've solved all the problems. And,
album will be out at the end of the year.
That's right, man. This is the cover. Zach, I often lie when I say this, but it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me again.
Anytime. Literally.